What's up, everybody? Matt Dawkins here, bringing you episode 4 of the Shape Up. We're talking about CrossFit for beginners, but even all my vets out there, stay tuned. You might learn something that'll change the game for you. Every single episode, we start by talking about our definition of CrossFit. So what is CrossFit according to Matt Dawkins and CrossFit Sacred Pine? It is this beautiful, perfect collision of functional fitness and a social life. Listen, some of y'all out there, you're trying to figure out how to get your fitness in. You're trying to figure out how to have a social life. CrossFit kills two birds with one stone, or you could say it feeds two birds with one scone. No matter how you say it, CrossFit is for you. It's awesome. We love it because, listen, you're hanging out with people you like, you're training in a way that's going to improve your quality of life, and you're also, years from now, it doesn't matter what's on the whiteboard as long as you get to do the workouts with the community that you come to know and love. I just got done working out, and I thought, today's workout was appropriate for me to bring this to you. So while it's hot off the press, here I am today talking about mechanics, consistency, and intensity. I got a few pointers for you afterwards, but what do we mean by that? Mechanics, consistency, intensity. So within the CrossFit world, undoubtedly, if you've never done CrossFit before, as soon as you step in, you are going to be getting acquainted with movements and the language and an intensity that you weren't familiar with previously, right? So when it comes to mechanics and the movements that you're going to be doing in here, we want to make sure that you are able to do the movements proficiently without an external load before we start chasing down the load. Load in this case meaning intensity, right? So when you start at CrossFit Sacred Pine, if you've never done CrossFit before, we take you through our onboarding process and you meet one-on-one with a coach, and it gives you an opportunity to go through this extensive vocabulary of movements that we do in the box every single day. An air squat, a pull-up, a push-up, a sit-up, even movements that do require an external load. But we want to make sure that you can move properly before we start adding intensity, and not just one good rep, right? When we talk about consistency, the next stage in the process, we want to see that the 100th rep is identical to the first rep. That's consistency. Just because you got the rep doesn't mean that you understand the rep, right? We want to make sure that you understand it, you know the points of performance, you're able to do it and do it consistently. Then we look to add intensity. So mechanics, then consistency, then and only then intensity. So intensity sometimes means speed of movement. Intensity sometimes means the load of the movement. Sometimes intensity can equate to the number of repetitions within a certain amount of time, which is another way of saying speed, right? But we want to make sure that things happen in that order. So this is a shorter episode, but just to belabor it a little bit, 2 big pointers. Some of the ways that we choose to put intensity before mechanics and before consistency is when we start chasing down kipping movements before we have the movements strict. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When it comes to a pull-up, many of us, we are anxious to get our first pull-up, and we're willing to sacrifice the strict strength that keeps the movement safe by chasing down kipping. If you're not familiar with kipping, kipping is essentially a way that we can transfer momentum that without proper strict strength in the joints, we can do a lot of damage, okay? We want to make sure that we're safe in here. Safety is of the utmost importance. So we want to make sure when we're practicing movements that we always have the movement strict before we're adding any sort of transfer of momentum. So when it comes to pull-ups, we want to make sure that we have a strict pull-up before we start chasing down kipping pull-ups. Even when it comes to like ring muscle-ups, we value a strict ring muscle-up before we're chasing down a kipping ring muscle-up. Handstand push-ups, another great example. You can do a lot of damage to your neck for those of us that are trying to generate so much momentum, but we don't have the strict strength to keep the movement safe, right? Mechanics, consistency, then and only then intensity. This is why we have coaches in the space, and we don't let our athletes run wild, because we know at times, even though we talked about this last episode, leave your ego at the door. When we're left to our own devices, sometimes that gets a little sketchy. Here's the last rule of thumb, because we have a lot of opportunities in this box to test our limits. And so if we're playing the long game here, we need to recognize that intensity, first and foremost, is a tool in our kit that will expose the flaws in our mechanics and give us a chance to go back to the fundamentals, back to the drawing board to perfect the movement. Just because you got the rep doesn't mean you should go up and try again. There are a few exceptions to that when we're testing in the box, but 99% of the time, Intensity's job is to expose the flaws in the mechanics to show us where we can make the movement better and then begin to strengthen around those flaws. That's all I got for you guys today. I just want to bring that to you today. I'm excited about continuing these episodes. Mechanics, consistency, then and only then intensity. We'll see you on the next episode.